I'm Nadia Jani and you're watching AnewZ. Let's see your headlines. Talks between Ukraine and Russia are due to begin in Turkey on Wednesday. Iran says it won't abandon its nuclear enrichment program, which was heavily damaged. And Shusha Global Media Forum concludes in Azerbaijan, highlighting the rise of disinformation. Two people have been killed and several injured after Russian missile attacks hit the Ukraine capital Kyiv on Monday. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha says meaningful peace talks must involve Volodymyr Zelensky, Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. His French counterpart Jean-Noel Barrot arrived in Ukraine yesterday and said any negotiations must begin with a ceasefire. The two countries are due to meet for peace talks on Wednesday in Istanbul.
Talks between Ukraine and Russia are set to resume in Turkey this Wednesday, according to Ukrainian officials, even as Russia intensifies its missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. It comes 7 weeks after the last round of discussions to negotiate a ceasefire. In Kyiv, Ukraine's foreign minister said meaningful negotiations can only happen with key players at the table.
It is important that future talks, once the dates are agreed, that the other side is able to discuss the most important issues, such as ending the war and achieving ceasefire. In order to do this, one of the proposals is to hold a meeting at the level of Zelensky and Putin. The participation of Trump, Erdogan and other European leaders would be beneficial.
French Foreign Minister Jean-Noel Barrot was in Kyiv in a show of support for the war-torn country on Monday. He backed a high-level summit, but said that a ceasefire must come first.
For your coming, and I know that from
Discussions must begin, but on a basis that respects the interests of both parties, because diplomacy is not about submission. It starts with a ceasefire, because as the President of the United States so aptly put it, you cannot negotiate peacefully under bombs.
As air raid sirens wailed across Kyiv on Monday, locals took shelter in metro stations, some of which were hit by Russian missiles.
It was very scary when the attack happened. There was a little panic, but because life has taught us how to behave, we've all gotten used to it.
In a late-night address, President Zelensky says the goal remains simple: peace.
Everyone working to protect life and limit Russia's war potential is working toward achieving peace. Russia must end this war. It itself started. Nobody else needs this war but Russia. There will definitely be peace.
France says it's ready to ramp up sanctions if Moscow rejects a ceasefire. Two earlier rounds of talks in Istanbul led to prisoner swaps between the two warring countries, but no progress towards ending the war itself.
Germany and the US have agreed to send 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. The deal was reached during German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius' recent trip to Washington.
Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius says the United States and Germany have agreed to deliver 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. The agreement was reached during his recent meeting with US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Germany will provide additional air defense systems and much-needed ammunition. On top of that, I agreed with Pete Hegseth during my trip to Washington, D.C. last week that Germany will contribute to providing the 5 urgently needed Patriot systems as quickly as possible.
Earlier this month, US President Donald Trump said Washington would send advanced weapons, including Patriots, to Ukraine via NATO, citing the country's need to defend itself from Russia. He said the weapons would be fully paid for by the alliance. The Patriot missile system, regarded as one of the best in the world, can detect and intercept a wide range of incoming aerial threats, particularly high-end ballistic missiles. Its deployment comes as Moscow ramps up nightly missile and drone attacks amid its full-scale war against Ukraine. Pistorius says coordination with partners on delivering the systems will continue in the coming days. Washington has already sent 3 Patriot batteries to Ukraine, with Germany providing 3 more. Another battery was contributed by a European coalition, though not all systems are currently operational due to routine maintenance rotations.
The UK has launched a 50-day push to step up military aid to Ukraine, aiming to increase pressure on Russia ahead of key international talks. The campaign, supported by Germany and aligned with a new US arms package, focuses heavily on strengthening Ukraine's air defences. Joining us to unpack this is Diogo Castro Silva, a political analyst. Hello, Diogo.
Hi there.
Hi. So my first question is, what is the goal of the UK's 50-day military aid initiative to the Ukraine?
Well, I think one has to step back and why this 50 days deadline here. Let me give you, I think, a couple of useful points. One, Putin still remains committed to subjugate Ukraine. It's not about territory or another objective is really the country's subjugation. Europe, I think, embarked on the 50-day deadline presented by President Trump because Europe is concerned to gain time. There are a number of capabilities that Europe cannot provide Ukraine, and these are intelligence, these are anti-air capability. So in the interest of gaining time, the 50-day window gave the opportunity to some countries in Europe to strengthen their supply of weapons to Ukraine. And that is the case of UK, but not only UK. On the other hand, he has used these 50 days to keep part of the Congress and part of the national security establishment in the US, which is clearly pro-Ukraine, off his back, because his sympathies and ideologically are still with Russia. So you are having this 50-day dance. Nobody really knows what will happen after the 50 days. I'm kind of very pessimistic that there will be talks, or that what can happen is Trump gives another 50 days, 2 weeks. So it's a very uncertain deadline, but in a way, it gave all the parties, the Russians, the Europeans, and the US and President Trump, a kind of window to pursue their objectives. So Russia, the subjugation of Ukraine, Europe arming Ukraine, and President Trump, for domestic political reasons, having some room to breathe on this issue.
Okay, and with that, how does the UK's efforts then align with the US and Germany's recent steps? What are they doing?
Well, the UK and Germany and other countries, they are aligned because basically one of the fears that Europeans had was that they would be prevented, for example, to sell weapons to Ukraine, to arm Ukraine, and in particular, some capabilities that are not produced in Europe, like, for example, the Patriot systems. So they are aligned in a European strategy of arming Ukraine and giving it some capacity to resist what is clearly an air attack, an intensifying air attack campaign from Russia.
Definitely. And do you think that this increased support could change, the dynamics of the battlefield or even the negotiation table?
Well, I do think it gives what Putin, for the war to stop, let me put it this way, for the war to stop, there is only one party that can stop the war. That's Russia, and that's Putin. So the incentives for it to stop the war has to be an increased cost of maintaining it. Now, having a more armed Ukraine and more capacity for Ukraine to resist is coherent with that objective. Will it be enough? I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical that, like I said, in 50 days we'll have a peace breakthrough, because I do think that Russia and Putin still maintain their objectives, and for them the war has become kind of existential for the regime as well. So I don't see the cost to be increased that much for them to stop in 50 days, let me put it that way. But it gives Ukraine a chance to resist this onslaught, which will continue, I do believe, for the next months.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The European Union's new Defence Commissioner has issued a direct message to Washington saying Europe will no longer rely solely on the US for its security. Speaking in Washington, Andreas Kobylios warned that Moscow could be ready to challenge NATO within 5 years. Kobylios said Europe is finally ramping up defence production and building independent military capacity, not just at America's request, but because of a clear danger posed by Russian President Vladimir Putin.
It means that we Europeans need to ramp up our defense capabilities. That is what we are doing. Not only because Americans have been demanding us to do so since long ago, but also because we see a clear and present danger of the possibility of Putin's aggression. We are preparing ourselves to take responsibility, and for that we need to build our own capacities, independent capacities.
The EU, UK and France, plus 21 other countries, have issued a joint statement saying the war in Gaza must end now and Israel must comply with international law. The statement said the suffering of civilians in Gaza has reached new depths and condemned the drip feeding of aid and the inhumane killing of civilians, including children seeking to meet their most basic needs of water and food. The statement came as Israel launched ground operations in the city of Deir al-Balah in Gaza, in central Gaza, for the first time after 21 months of war. The World Food Programme has raised fresh alarm over conditions in Gaza as aid operations face mounting risks and severe access challenges. The United Nations agency says hunger in Gaza has reached astonishing levels of desperation, with a third of the population going days without food and nearly 100,000 women and children suffering severe malnutrition. It says it has food ready for Gazans but cannot deliver it without a ceasefire and safe access.
Well, since the middle of May, we've only been able to move less than 10% of what's needed in terms of number of trucks. So and rather than counting trucks, that's kind of what we're looking at as a metric. And so clearly that's not enough. And, you know, during the ceasefire earlier this year, we were moving more than 200 trucks just at WFP food assistance alone in, and that's the level that's needed. I will say that we have enough pre-positioned outside of Gaza to provide assistance for the entire population for 2 months if we can get a ceasefire and if we can move.
Iran says it won't abandon its nuclear enrichment program even after major damage from the recent Israel-Iran conflict. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told Fox News that the US airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites caused severe setbacks, but he insisted the program is tied not only to science but also to national pride. Despite the pause in operations due to the destruction, Tehran sees enrichment as a core achievement that cannot be abandoned.
Our nuclear program, our enrichment program is not something imported from outside that can be destroyed by bombings. It is developed by ourselves. It is an achievement by ourselves. The technology is there. The scientists are there. You know, the people who have run these facilities are there. Buildings can be rebuilt. You know, facilities can be rebuilt. Machines can be, replaced because the technology is there. I think the recent attack proved that there is no military option.
At least 27 people have been killed and more than 80 people injured after a Bangladesh Air Force jet crashed into a school in Dhaka on Monday. The aircraft hit a college and school campus after experiencing a technical problem shortly after takeoff, according to a military spokesperson.
Grieving relatives of victims from a plane crash in Bangladesh's capital gather at hospitals waiting for news of their loved ones. Officials say many of those injured are in a critical condition. It's after an Air Force jet crashed into a school and college in Dhaka on Monday, killing at least 27 people and injuring around 88. Many of those are children, some under the age of 12.
My son managed to speak to us. He said he was in the staircases heading towards their canteen when he heard a deafening sound. Then he realised his school shirt was caught on fire. He sprinted to the ground floor and jumped on the grass to douse it. He tore his shirt and vest inside, which saved him from severe burn. Then the others came to his rescue.
Authorities are also working to identify several victims through DNA testing.
7 bodies could not be identified. Only their remains are left. DNA samples are being collected from the remains. Their identities might be determined through this process, but it is very difficult to say anything for certain at this point. However, we assume that all of them are children.
The F-7BGI aircraft crashed soon after it took off at just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon local time from the airbase in the capital on a routine training mission. The military said the plane experienced a mechanical failure. The country has declared a day of mourning with flags at half-mast and special prayers at all places of worship. Officials say a committee had been formed to investigate what happened.
President of Azerbaijan, Aliyev, has extended his gratitude to US President Donald Trump for sharing his remarks on social media regarding the US-Azerbaijan relations. In his message, Aliyev praised Trump's commitment to promoting peace, both globally and in the South Caucasus, as conveyed during the recent Shusha Global Media Forum. He also reaffirmed Azerbaijan's support for Trump's vision and noted shared values, including strong family traditions. The Azerbaijani president said he remains hopeful that bilateral relations will deepen further under Trump's presidency, wishing him continued success in his efforts. Now, to help us unpack the meaning and implications of this, we are now joined by Associate Professor Orkhan Aliyev, Head of Department at Kaiser University in Baku. Hello, Orkhan.
Hello, Dean and Nadia. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem. So my first question to you, Orkhan, is what do you make of President Trump sharing President Aliyev's remarks, and what message might he be trying to send?
As you know, the Azerbaijan and Armenia had the bilateral meetings in terms of the high level leadership recently in Dubai. And despite, as President Aliyev mentioned in his the post, despite the global agenda, the global agenda that Trump seems that keeps the situation in those Caucasus on his agenda. So that would be grateful, and that would also facilitate to get to reach the final agreement between two nations, which would be the historic achievement for the future of Azerbaijan, for the future of the region, to establish a secure and peaceful environment in the region. For this respect, the sharing of the President Aliyev's remark on his social media could be considered as grateful to the contribution to the ongoing negotiation between two nations. And it seems that, yes, as I mentioned before, that keeps the situation in the South Caucasus on the global agenda.
Yes, no, and it sounds like these relations can only get better. Do you think, obviously, President Aliyev responded to Trump's tweet and saying that they hope that conversations and relations would deepen further? Do you think that's likely to happen?
Sorry.
Do you think relations between Azerbaijan and the US will deepen further, their relationship?
Yep. As President Aliyev mentioned in his remarks at the Third Global Media Forum, the Azerbaijani society and the president are sharing the same values, including in terms of the family, for example. So that's why the relation between Azerbaijan and the US and Azerbaijan during the Trump administration time would be great. Would be great and sounds the hope for the future. And we can consider the relation between two countries, two states, especially in terms of the ongoing negotiation process between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the South Caucasus, which is quite enough important.
Great. Thank you so much, Orhan, for joining us today. Shusha's Global Media Forum had its last day on Monday and shone the spotlight on media literacy, information security and AI's role. Panellists drove home a key message that media literacy isn't optional and stated it's not just about consuming news, but critically evaluating and questioning it.
Day 3 of the third Shusha Global Media Forum began with AnewZ in the spotlight. Deputy Editor-in-Chief Orkan Amashov opened the day, unveiling the new opinion section on the AnewZ website. The platform aims to encourage clear judgment, strong analysis, and open debate. The session also featured Destination Shusha, a documentary produced by AnewZ earlier this year. The session drew a packed audience of journalists, delegates, and media executives, underlining AnewZ's growing role in global media debates.
Following this, the forum turned its focus to broader global issues at the core of today's agenda: media literacy, information security, and the AI's growing grip on truth. Media literacy is no longer optional. It's the foundational literacy of the 21st century. It should begin in classrooms and extend into newsrooms.
The goal? To help people question what they see, think critically, and understand different views. Panelists drew compelling parallels between how we read the news and how we perceive the world. Another session focused on journalism in the age of AI. The discussion explored how artificial intelligence is changing newsrooms. Speakers warned of the risks, reminding that truth, accuracy, and accountability must not be lost to automation.
As journalists, we must always move forward, and not just drift, but progress thoughtfully. We need to seek common ground, even amid disagreements. We should help the state arrive at the right solutions and empower our audience to think in a broader, more holistic way, not just about today or tomorrow, but beyond. It's our duty to look out for future generations and to prioritize the interests of the state. We see that Azerbaijan is on the right path. Going forward, many issues will become easier to resolve. As journalists, we must consider every matter, understand the essence of our work. We serve the people and uphold the interests of the state.
We all realize that there are some serious challenges out there. Technology is moving so fast that no human can keep up with it, and that includes AI. So what do? Well, we need to learn how to use it, how to work with it, how to recognize the challenges, how to recognize disinformation, and we all need to be educated. I think that was a great theme that came out, and I agree with that. All of us are now undereducated because technology has moved faster than anyone could have imagined.
Artificial intelligence has been out there for over 3 years now, but I think it's fair to say that right now in 2025 it has become more integrated into the media ecosystem, and this is primarily why this forum, the third Global Shusha Media Forum, has been designated to AI and media literacy, because I believe that it's of paramount importance for us journalists, for media professionals to discuss this, because while there are many opportunities within AI, I think it also poses a lot of threats. So I think this platform serves as an opportunity for journalists, for media professionals, for policymakers to come together and to discuss all of these issues.
Social media was also in the spotlight. A panel looked at how new online platforms affect public trust in journalism. The message was clear. Rebuilding trust is now a key mission for media. As the forum wraps up, Shusha remains true to its role, preserving history while building platforms for the future.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdigan said the opening of the Zangezur corridor could revitalize trade and promote cooperation across the region. Speaking to reporters on his return from northern Cyprus, Erdogan emphasized that the corridor would benefit not only Azerbaijan, Armenia and Turkey, but also other neighboring countries. He described the project as a key geo-economic link that could connect the region to wider global markets. Armenia will build a 42-kilometer railway in Sayunik province as part of the Zangezur corridor, only after reaching an agreement with Azerbaijan, according to Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's spokesperson Nazeli Bagdasaryan. She said the railway cannot operate even for domestic transport in Armenia unless a deal is in place. Preliminary work has already started, including a new road to Nernazor village, which is currently connected through the old railway line. Bagdasaryan added that Armenia supports reopening all transport routes with neighbouring countries. Tensions between Georgia's government and the European Union has reached a new high. The European Parliament has issued one of its strongest statements yet, saying Georgia's path to the EU is effectively blocked. The ruling party quickly pushed back. Arnini Nukalevshvili has the details.
Georgia's ruling party is pushing back after the European Parliament issued a strong statement declaring that country's European path is blocked unless the government changes its authoritarian course. The message posted on the Parliament's official platform X page says that it no longer recognizes the current government and emphasized that the EU integration is suspended unless fair and free elections are held. In a sharp response, Parliamentary Majority Leader Dinaradze accused the EU of political interference. Posting on a Facebook, he said that this statement is a blackmail, claiming that this was deliberately timed to support opposition protests. Mamukam Dinaradze said that now it turns out that the issue was authoritarianism. Apparently we need to copy Saakashvili and go to war with Russia and abandon our national values to get some positive statement, he wrote it on Facebook. Dinaradze dismissed criticism as a part of a coordinated campaign to weaken the government and to boost what he described as failed rally. The European Parliament, meanwhile, stood firm, stating that he supports the civil society and Georgian people and considers this government as incompatible with European values. This rare and direct language signals growing concern in Brussels about Tbilisi's political trajectory, putting even more pressure on the government ahead of upcoming local elections. It's Nini Nikolaishvili, reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
The Caspian Sea's water level has dropped to its lowest point ever recorded. Experts say that the northern shallow areas along the Russian and Kazakh coasts are undergoing the biggest changes. Our Fariza Kalemazerna has the details.
According to the Volga-Caspian branch of the Caspian Fisheries Research Institute, the drop in water level is primarily caused by a reduction in river inflow, most notably from the Volga River, which contributes around 80% of the Caspian's river runoff and approximately 64% of the total incoming water balance. Over the past 4 years, the annual flow of the Volga has ranged between 210 and 232 cubic kilometers, significantly lower than the long-term average. Experts also point to rising atmospheric greenhouse gas levels, which are driving temperature increases and accelerating water loss from the surface of both the sea and its feeder rivers. At the same time, growing water demand for irrigation, industry and municipal use is placing additional pressure on the rivers that supply the Caspian. The Caspian Sea is the world's largest enclosed body of water, fed by over 130 rivers, and its shoreline is shared by 5 countries, Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan and Iran. While the shrinking sea is a problem for all of them, experts warn that Kazakhstan could be hit the hardest if water levels keep dropping. Many fear that the Caspian could face the same fate as the nearby Aral Sea, located between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, which began drying up in the 1960s when its feeder rivers were diverted to irrigate cotton fields. According to projections by regional climate researchers, Central Asia may face serious water shortages as early as 2028. And for Kazakhstan, losing 20% of its share of the Caspian could have significant consequences for its growing population. Environmental activists say this is not just an environmental crisis, but also a humanitarian and economic challenge. They stress that solving these issues will require a comprehensive approach and strong international cooperation. Fariza Kalimurzina, AnewZ, Almaty, Kazakhstan.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.